I'm a farmer, and
Uh-huh.
we can talk about the impacts on my farm, but I'm not keeping track of all the
No,
markets.
no,
But
no.
I
That's
know. Okay.
I'm going to you from what your brother told me. I want to go to your personal experience.
Okay.
And, and that will become clear as I read a portion of this story from ProPublica that I
Okay.
saw some years ago.
Okay.
Okay.
Very, very good. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm very, very excited. And we're going to come up. We're already up, and I want everybody, hey, Bernadette, everybody, please like and share, like and share, like and share. I know I'm coming on a little early today, but we're going to be talking about farming, farming. You know, between 1910 and 1997, African Americans lost 90% of our farmland. We need to talk about that. And I have a wonderful story, painful story, but it's illustrative of where we are. Because, you know, you saw in Gone with the Wind, but I'll get into it. It's the land, everybody. It's the land. That's where the power and the wealth is. So, Mr. Peer, I need you. Okay, I need you right. Go back up to your right just a little bit. That's it. That's perfect. That's perfect.
Okay. Now, why you got me with my face right in the screen? My brother is kind of laid
No,
back.
that's because that's where he has his camera positioned, and that's okay.
Oh,
So don't worry
Yeah,
about
let me
that's right.
change that. How about that?
That's right. That's right. Come on in.
Yeah.
But
All right.
your brother getting on top of you this morning, so I get that.
Yeah.
Sounds like my brother's getting on me. So we're gonna come up actually in 20 seconds. Okay. In 15, in 10, 5, 3, 1. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm saying hello to my morning stars who are coming in from all over the country and in some instances from all over the world. Hello, how you doing today? We've got a lot to talk about, something that ties all people all around the world together. Farming, land ownership. I'm a big fan of the movie Gone with the Wind for a whole lot of reasons. It is a period piece, and it is telling about the time in which it was shot, but it's a tale of a particular period in history. It's not lost on me that Scarlett O'Hara's family was from Ireland, her father, and he was at the bottom of the social ladder in the United Kingdom. And then he came to America because it gave him an opportunity to do something that he could never dream of doing as long as he was in the Commonwealth, as long as he was a subject of the Queen, and that is to own land. What makes America unique amongst industrialized nations, at least that was the initial case, was private land ownership. That's a very, very big deal because that is where the money is. Remember, Mr. O'Hara said, Scarlett, never forget, my darling, it's the land. It's the land. It's the land. And she did everything she could throughout that whole movie to hold on to the land. Black people have lost more than $1 trillion in wealth because we have had our land taken from us, stolen from us. And we need to talk about that. We need to talk about land ownership. But this is an issue that is becoming a problem for all privately held land and privately, small farmers. You know, you have people like Bill Gates who are buying up massive tracts of land. They're not farming, but they are owning. So let's really talk about that. And I will tell you, because I've got two gentlemen on with me today from KKAC. Indeed, it's a tremendous organization. They really help to fight for private land ownership. But I'm going to let them tell the story about this wonderful organization that helps not just land ownership, but estate planning, helping you to hold on to it. But I came across a story, everybody. I came across a story and I want to read a portion of it to you. As I do, I want you to follow me on Blue Sky, santitajackson.bsky.social. I'm on X at SantitaJ. I'm on Instagram, Santita Jackson IG. Santita Jackson IG. Of course, you can meet me right here on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook. So let's get to it. I came across this story some years ago on ProPublica, which you know is one of my favorite outlets. And it's a nonprofit newsroom that does a lot of investigations. And the title of this story is The Reels Brothers spent 8 years in jail for refusing to leave their land. And the header is they're talking about the land loss, particularly of Black people who were promised our 40 acres and a mule coming out of slavery. The story begins something like this, and this is from July 15th of 2019. In the spring of 2011, the brothers Melvin Davis and Lycurtis Reels were the talk of Carteret County on the central coast of North Carolina. Some people said that the brothers were righteous. Others thought that they had lost their minds. That March, Melvin and Lycurtis stood in court and refused to leave the land that they had lived on all their lives, a portion of which, without their knowledge or consent, had been sold to developers years before. They were among dozens of Reels family members who considered the land theirs. But these two brothers had a particular stake in this land. Melvin, who was 64, with loose black curls, as was written, combed into a ponytail, ran a club there and lived in an apartment above it. He'd established a career shrimping in the river that bordered the land, and his sense of self was tied to the water and to the land. And like Curtis, who spent years building a house near the river's edge, he lived just steps away from his mother. Their great-grandfather had bought the land 100 years earlier when he was a generation removed from slavery. The property, 65 marshy acres, ran along the Silver Dollar Road from the woods to the river's sandy shore. It was racked by storms. Some called it the bottom or the end of the world. But they farmed watermelons there and beets and peas and raised chickens and hogs. They had church revivals on the waterfront. Kids played in the river. It was just tied to a way of life. But they didn't trust the courts. His great-grandfather didn't, and so he did not leave a will. Instead, he let the land become heirs' property, a form of ownership in which descendants inherit an interest. That's the rub, everybody. Many assume that not having a will keeps land in the family. In reality, it jeopardizes ownership. Indeed, between 1910 and 1997, African Americans lost about 90% of their farmland. This problem is a major contributor to America's racial wealth gap. The median wealth among Black families is about 1/10 that of white families. Peer's brothers, welcome to the show. Ricky Peer, who is a farmer, and Wilbur Peer, who is the executive director of KKAC, this wonderful organization. I'm so glad that you are with us today. I met you at the Congressional Black Caucus weekend, where everybody goes to talk about policy and issues, and I'm so glad that you're here this morning. Let me start with you, Mr. Wilbur Peer, and welcome to the show. KKAC, what do you do? I mean, I see land retention and private land ownership and wealth building, estate planning. You cover the waterfront here, if you will. What is KKAC and what is your mission?
Okay, first of all, Miss Jackson, thank you for inviting me and my brother to be on your program. That's number one. Number two, thank you for your family, your dad and your brothers, who made a tremendous contribution to our community and the well-being of our community. Now, let's get into KKAC. First of all, KKAC stand for Caleb, Corey, Andre, and Cole. Those are my grandchildren. My brothers and I and my son, who passed away in April of 2018, took his own life. But at the time, when he did that, we were farming about 4,500 acres of land. Now we farm about 3,000 acres of land. What we decided is that we needed to form a not-for-profit organization so we could educate the minority youth about the business of agriculture production. And the reason we thought like that is because in Lee County, Arkansas, where I was born and raised, which at the time During that time, it was about the sixth poorest county in the nation. I asked a young lady, I think she was ninth or 10th grade, where do you think string beans come from? She said, out of a can. I said, oh my God, how in the world can we maintain wealth in our community when we don't understand farming? So, what we do, we started the organization to help educate minority youth about the business of agriculture production. Most young people and some older minority people view farming as being akin to slave labor. But what we help our young people understand that if you're a farmer, you're a business manager, you got to understand chemistry. If you own livestock, you got to understand biology. And then you got to understand marketing. And if you own 200 or 300 acres of land, you're pretty well off. Um, so we got three components to our organization. One component is dealing with minority youth. We put our youth through a 12-month program, helping them to understand how to fill out a loan application to borrow money to produce a crop. We help them to understand not only do you grow on our farm, we grow soybeans, rice, corn, and winter wheat. But the way you really make money, if you can add value to the products that you grow. For instance, in Phillips County, Arkansas, we farm in Lee and Phillips County, Arkansas. One family grows sweet potatoes on 86 acres of land, sweet potatoes and corn. They have established a distillery. They make vodka out of sweet potatoes. And they are now, I think, in about 8 or 10 states around the country. And probably pretty soon they're going to be all over the country. So that's value added processing, as we refer to it. But we also help them understand that produce farming is equally as valuable or more so than row crop farming, commodity farming. It's what we do. I got a friend that grows 500 acres of watermelons, and each acre of watermelons produce about anywhere from 3,000 to 4,000 watermelons per acre. And you have to go to his farm to pick them up, and that costs you about $6 to $10. But if you send them to market, they're $15 to $20. So you can count that. You can do the math. So that's one part of what we do with our young people, help them to understand that part of the business of farming. The second thing that we do is land management, what Ricky will talk about. But what we work with minority landowners to help them to understand their resources already available through the U.S. Department of Agriculture, particularly the Natural Resources Conservation Service. We refer to NRCS as a wealth building agency because if those practices are implemented, which is land leveling, nutrient management, which is you test your soil for the appropriate nutrients to implement, cover crops to help stop the erosion of the land. And when you put a cover crop on in the wintertime, we plant turnip greens, radish, and other type of grasses to stop the topsoil from running off. And then in the spring, we kill the grasses, but the roots of the product stays in the soil, provide nitrogen and phosphorus and those kinds of things. The other part of it is irrigation system. So if you had 100 acres of land and it's not level, you may get 70% of the acres, 70% of the land productive. But if you level the land where you can get an even flow of water, then you got 100 acres of productive land. But what we found when we first started is that 90 to 95% of our landowners had their lands tied up in heirs property issues. And in order to participate in these government programs, you have to show clear title, ownership of the land, a long-term lease. And believe it or not, I'm an older person now, not really interested in farming since my son is no longer here, but I still participate. A lot of older people sell their land when they could get near the fair market value by participating in one of the USDA programs. And that program is called the Agriculture Conservation Easement Program. For instance, if you were in Arkansas and you had 100 acres of land that's eligible to be enrolled in agriculture conservation easement program, the government will pay you $4,009 per acre to take your land out of crop production and enroll it in the easement program. That's $490,000, and you still own the title to the land. And then guess what? You can transfer that ownership to your heirs. Now, you cannot plant row crops on the land anymore, but you own the land. They will spend another $500 per acre planting bottomland hardwood trees. And when those trees mature, that's your timber. Then you can lease the land to duck hunters. You can use it for recreational purposes. So that's kind of what we do with land management. But this third component is the heirs property clearinghouse. I said that 90 to 95% of the landowners had their lands tied up in heirs property. So we got some funding to pay to help people navigate the issue of gaining clear title to the land. And we help write wills and trusts at no cost to the participants. We don't go to court and do a whole lot of litigation now.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can help us identify the heirs, I have to have the lawyers to talk about that, but we work with landowners, and we operate in 11 states, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, South Carolina, North Carolina, Florida. Did I miss one, Ricky? Did I get it?
Yeah, you got Alabama.
Alabama and Tennessee, that's right.
Yeah.
So well, let me ask you this. When
yes.
I shared that story with you from this North Carolina farming family,
yes,
did that sound familiar?
We are familiar. I
mean,
think
not the story, but the circumstance.
Absolutely. Yes. You'd be surprised. We get calls every day. And Arkansas passed a law called the Heirs Property Petition Act, where heir cannot sell their portion of the land without first offering it to other members of the heirs.
Mm-hmm.
However, if they fight among themselves, they still will be in the same place without the Heirs Property Petition Act, because when you bring a lawyer, get a lawyer involved, they still can attach a mechanic's lien and force the seller of the property if you don't pay them. So when you were bringing us on, you talked about the number of acres that we lost.
Mm-hmm.
We did a little research, and some of it I can't go back and put my hand on it, but at the turn of the century, in like 1910 and 1915, we owned between, the records say we own 19, but the way I did my calculation, we own between 20 and 30 million acres of land. We own 14% of all the agriculture production land in this country. So that the 14% of about 157 million acres would have been around 20 to 30 million acres.
Mm-hmm.
70% of the land that we lost, I think we down around 3 million acres now that we own, that's being in production agriculture. But 70% of the land that we own was lost to discriminatory practices and bad public policies. But 30% of what we lost is because we walked away from it, in a sense. We did not do proper estate planning. So if you talk about 30%, that's 6 or 7 million acres. And your number, I came up with that same number. It's about $1 trillion in loss that we kind of walked away from it. And I got some friends all over the country, and some of them are really, really educated. And they say, Peer, I don't want you to talk to me about no music, no tractors. And I would say to them, if you weren't so ignorant, you wouldn't be making those comments.
Mm-hmm.
Because as you say, Bill Gates is the largest agriculture production landowner in this country.
And he's buying more land.
And he's buying more
every day. Ted Turner, that's what he did. I mean, Neverland, which was Michael Jackson's estate, was a huge tract of land, and it could have, and it was it was income. It was not an amusement park, but some of it could, he was a brilliant businessman. Some of it was for charity. And I'm wondering if we really, because there's so much pain that comes out of the experience of enslavement, that we diminish a lot of things, a lot of professions where we could, well, I mean, that put money right in our, put money in our hands,
Yes.
and I'm just wondering, so I mean, help me with that, because now they're turning a lot of Detroit into farmable land, which is what we do in the Midwest. That's what we have. And some people frown upon that, and I'm just wondering how we can uh, get out of that, because we you need, my mother's turned their backyard, I think, like a third to a half of my parents' backyard in Chicago. She's planted vegetables. She loves it, and she uses these vegetables. I mean, it's like if I want a cucumber, I can go in the backyard and there it is. If I want
So
tomatoes, there they are.
may I talk to you about that just a little bit?
Please, please.
So actually, Ricky, do you want to add to this discussion because you run the land
Ex-
manager? You can
Excuse me,
talk
because
about what we
I,
do.
and I'm bringing this up, Mr. Wilbur Peer and Mr. Ricky Peer, because
Before you
we
froze
have
me, Jackson.
these food deserts. I mean, and it's like this is like the perfect opportunity with these vacant lots.
Yes.
I just, so help me, please. Ricky Peer or Wilbur Peer, I think Mr. Peer, Wilbur Peer, your older brother, pitched it to you. So Ricky
Yeah.
Peer, you go on.
Well, let me say I got two things to say if I could, and I want to just make one comment about the Davis story,
Mhm,
and let me just speak to that just for a second.
mhm.
We had a situation with close to our family, one of our family members, an adjacent farmer manufactured a offer to purchase by the father, by my nephew
Your
owned the
neck.
property. And so we had a white farmer manufactured a offer to purchase, and the land was worth about $100,000, and he offered him $20,000. Not until we worked with my nephew to get into legal support and to challenge this farmer, and we found out that the document was manufactured. So you asked if those type of situations are still going on. Absolutely, and it's very close to what we do and how we support those landowners. Now let's talk about the food desert. So one of the things that we are doing in urban gardening, and I think that's what we're talking about, urban gardening. We're attempting to educate our youth. If we can get to the youth to understand how their food is produced, then they can get to their parents. And if we can get them to understand it, we can just education and exposure is what's going to support uh, this urban gardening, not only in the South, in the Delta, but also in the cities like Chicago, like St. Louis. We have programs right now that we're working in Detroit, in St. Louis, in Memphis, Tennessee. So it's education and exposure that's going to turn this ship. And it's going to take longer than just a few days, a few weeks. It's going to take months and years to turn the ship on urban gardening and farming.
Well, Ricky Peer, is this, are we having to, is this one of the vestiges of, what they call, Dr. Joy Degree calls it post-traumatic slave syndrome. It's not anything to, it's a real thing. And there is a lot that we wanted to get downtown and get the corporate jobs, and W.E.B. Du Bois had a point, but Booker T. Washington had a point. Cast your buckets where you, that's where they are, where you are. And we're agriculturalists also. And I'm wondering, how you break the barrier. I think it could also be very calming to communities to have urban farming. Because many of us are displaced Southerners anyway. We ran to the north trying to escape lynchings. I mean, come on.
Ms. Jackson,
No,
if I may, Ricky,
Santita, it would be just fine.
Santita.
Yes, sir.
So get to the point that Ricky made, and I always like to talk about what's available to get to your point. The government will pay people to do what you're talking about in urban gardening and urban farming. If you own a block of land, a quarter of a block of land in Chicago or in Detroit, you could go to the Farm Services Agency and apply for a farm number. Take that farm number to the Natural Resources Conservation Service and apply for a high tunnel. That's a hoop house, plastic house with metal rods that will increase the growing season so you can plant vegetables and other types of fruits on your own land. We promote that, in the Department of Agriculture was promoting that during the Biden administration because we were trying to eliminate food deserts. In a lot of our communities, all we got are those fast food stores, 7-Eleven type stores on the corner, and it's hard to get access to fresh produce. When I left Arkansas and went to D.C. for a while, I was buying tomatoes out of a store. And then I decided I'm going to dig up a part of my backyard and plant my own tomatoes. And I didn't realize, because I'm coming from the rural area, I understood a tomato just to be a nice vegetable or fruit. But when I lived in D.C., I was eating those tomatoes and they just didn't taste good. So I grew my own tomato. Then I realized a tomato is really sweet because I could tell the difference. And there are resources to help people do what you're talking about now. And that agriculture really is in our blood.
Absolutely. But, even that, to know that you could turn your backyard
into
or, and a lot of these lots don't cost a lot of money, at least at one point they did not. And to get that and to turn that into a place where you can produce your own food. I mean, because now we're facing with the ice raids. I mean, how are they impacting your business? I mean, do you have African Americans who want to do the farm work, or is this something that we're seeing really immigrants or migrants do?
We have HB1 visa workers, Ricky?
H2. We have H2 workers coming from Mexico that's supporting the farm. And so, how is it impacting us? Now they are afraid to even move the equipment from field to field to go out and shop. They usually do their shopping on Sundays once they complete the work for 6 days. Now we are having to transport them because of the ice raids. And so, even though they are legally through the State Department, but once they are detained, that's going to disrupt the farming operation. So we cannot farm 2,000 acres of land with one person. We have a farm manager, but we got about 5 H2 workers that's supporting him. And so, how is it impacting us? Is having to transport them where they, on a normal circumstance, they transport themselves.
So what happens? I mean, because I saw this during COVID. I was talking to some farmers during the pandemic and during the lockdown. I was talking to farmers in Wisconsin, and black and white, they were having a hard time getting the crops out of the fields and to the marketplace. Is that happening now? I mean, and they had food, they had corn, they had beans, they had crops that were rotting. Are we seeing that now?
Well, the crops that we produce are commodity crops. We're not vegetable growers. We grow corn for the market for cattle feed and things of that nature, and soybeans the same way, wheat the same. So that's not affecting us as much as it is the produce farmers, people
Mhm.
that grow vegetables and things of that nature. But it is having impact because if you can't get workers to come to work for you, then you can't farm as much. Let me just talk about the dramatic effect it's having. We've had at least three farmers, large white farmers, that committed suicide within the last 4 or 5 months. I was in Albany, Georgia, about
Really?
3 weeks ago, and a young lady there from the Natural Resources Department for the state of Georgia, five farmers had committed suicides over the past 2 weeks prior to the meeting. So this is what's happening.
What is going on? What?
Where the effects of the tariff, lack of access. Let me give you one instance. So there had been appropriated about $18 billion for disaster relief. And I'm not trying to get too partisan political here. However, 35% of those funds have been paid for disaster relief. It's another 65% that need to be paid to the farmers because some of the subsidy payments that we receive as farmers, that's where your profit is. You don't really, you just break even producing a crop with the cost of implementation. So when the disaster funds are held up, that prevent a farmer from completing the crop year. Now, that 35% was a minuscule amount of what's really needed to keep the farm operating. Hopefully, they will pay the additional 65% that's eligible to be paid. The money's been appropriated. They just have not allocated the funds. And I'll leave it at that. So when I tell you with what's going on now,
Mm-hmm.
it's devastating. I would say that we are going to lose in the state of Arkansas at least a third to a quarter of all the farmers in this state. Bankruptcies, the lawyers are advertising tremendously now. Come to see us if you need a bankruptcy lawyer. It's having a devastating impact.
Well, Ricky Peer, if with the bankruptcies, does that mean that I guess I would just say that the wealthy developers can just buy land for cheap? Is that what happens?
Well, those corporate farmers
Yeah.
can buy land for cheap.
So
Is so no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, 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 no. Please continue because no. I mean, I you read. I'm reading some. It's almost as if the suicides of these farmers that they're being mentioned in passing.
That's true.
But and there was a farmer, I will never forget him, who was very supportive of my father's presidential candidacy in 84 and 88. Wonderful man who killed himself after the 88 campaign. We wish we had heard from him. We wish he had reached out. But he was in dire straits financially. So help me, Ricky Peer, help me to understand what is going on here. Because it shouldn't have to come to that.
Well, let me just tell you the impacts that we are having is that if you go back to 21, 22, the soybeans per bushel was about 13.30, and today is down to about $10, a little bit under 10. So let's just give you an example. If you making 51 bushels to the acre and at $13.30 per 100 acres, you at harvest you receive about $67,000. Now
Mhm.
let's go back to the current state. If you're selling your soybean, that same 51 bushels to the acre at $10 a bushel per 100 acres, you're making about 52,000. So there you got a loss per acre about $15,000 an acre. And when you look at the input costs, if you look at the fertilizer, if you go back a year ago, uh, or 2 years ago, uh, you had fertilizer per ton was $546 per ton. Today is $785,000 a ton. So
Mhm.
what's happening? The input costs and the your yields due to weather impacts
Mhm.
and the cost of the grain. So the tariffs, what the tariffs have done, China is not buying any grain from the U.S. So they are buying their grain from Argentina, Brazil.
Mhm.
Okay, if you look at wheat, our the wheat global market now is Mexico, Russia is producing most of our wheat. So what is happening? The tariffs, the weather, okay, the labor. So there's the formula to what's got us where we are today.
It seems like the system's being collapsed. It's not collapsing, it's being collapsed.
You just that's it. You got it. Is it intentionally? I don't know, but
You
what's
can
factual?
you can leave that to me.
Yeah.
Because well, I'm only saying that because I'm sensitive to the position in which you function, but I'm looking globally, and just there's so much that is happening. Part of what makes America what has made America the economic superpower that it's been is that number one, we have sea we from sea to shining sea. We're not landlocked to the greatest oceans in the world and the Gulf of Mexico, even though the president chooses to call it the Gulf of the Americas. Okay, we have one of the ninth largest inland body of water in the world. That's Lake Michigan. That's not counting the other Great Lakes. I mean, we had the Mississippi River. We've got so much, and there is a system that you, Ricky Peer, and Wilbur Peer, a system in place that you've described, a whole ecosystem where we make this money. And so I'm sure with the collapsing of USAID, I mean, there's just so much business that you were doing overseas that people all around the world, please correct me if I'm wrong, have depended upon soybeans, right? And your crops. So, and they're going to other countries. Will they come back?
Well, they may, with the right, well, they may come back, but it will be over a long period of time.
Hmm.
I think China has not, I don't think they bought any grain from this country this year, and they're not planning to. I did have a number that they purchased from South America that was normally a market for the U.S. agriculture producers, that it may take 5 to 10 years or may not ever come back. So that put a real strain on us. In addition to USAID used to buy a lot of crops from American producers to
Mhm.
donate to other countries, and USAID was one of the best agencies. It helped kept peace around the world, as far as I'm concerned, and it aided the American people because not only did USAID buy crops and then donate them or sell them to third world countries, but it also aided us into selling other types of product to the foreign countries. So this is having a big impact, and a lot of the larger producers, larger farming communities, they don't necessarily have a voice like we do because we talk about the pain that we are. They kind of suffer in silence, like you
Mhm.
talked about the farmer
Mhm.
that you wished he had reached out to you. And farmers are very prideful people. They
Right.
don't want people to understand their pain and suffering. They'll just rather take their own life and just go away. And that's not the way. But go ahead, Ricky.
Yeah, so let me bring us back to KKAC and
Mhm.
what we do in land management and why we exist. So there's farmers. local farmers in the Delta, the Mississippi Delta and the Arkansas, that does not have the exposure. And so what we do, we want to help educate them the benefits, opportunities that the USDA and NRCS provide them if they own land. So what we would like to do is, if they own one speck of soil, how do you make that soil productive?
Mm.
And so it's through the education and exposure and experiences. And I tell this story all the time. We're working with a person right now that owns 39 acres of wooded land. And so the land has been sitting idle for the last 15 to 20 years.
But
So
wait a minute. When you say it's been sitting idle, what does that mean?
so that means that at one time it was farmable land, about
Mhm.
20 acres of it. So, for whatever reason, it wasn't being leased, it wasn't being farmed. And so, what has happened to it is it's grown into a forest. What the type of wood is like a sweet gum that have no productive use.
Mhm.
And so now, and the family continues to pay taxes. And so they came to us, KKAC, and say, "Hey, how can you help us?" So we are engaged with them currently. We have did a forest management plan on the land to see how do we do reforestation into productive hardwood, oak type species of trees. Okay. Oh, can she rent the land for hunters? It's a big hunting season
Mhm.
population down in Arkansas. So we're working with it. There's an assistance program that we think we can get her into through the NRCS program. So what we do is work with these landowners.
Mhm.
We expose them to these type of opportunities. Not only that we tell them about them, we hold their hands in completing the applications.
Mhm.
Okay, we introduce them to the farmer, the hunters, the hunting clubs that might want to hunt their lands. So we in land management is for what we're doing is technical
Ricky, you
assistance.
have a bad connection. So
Okay,
Oh
okay,
no,
you
I
got
can
you.
hear you. I can hear you, Ricky Peer. You
okay.
Oh, you can.
So
yes.
So I just wanted to bring that to what we're doing in KKC, not only with those landowners, but to the youth. We have a huge youth department with 30 young people in Arkansas. We got 30 young people in Mississippi, and so what the young people see in farming is akin to slave labor, and I think you kind of mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
But we are showing the young people that this is a huge business, and so that's
Well,
what we're doing.
and that's the American way, the appeal, right? Because we've become so corporatized in our thinking. So
Mhm.
help me to understand, because it's a virtual world. Ricky Peer, Wilbur Peer, and I'm wondering if with urban farming and with people, because Black people in particular are moving back to the South. We're going back to where we came from. Is there any outreach being done? Arkansas, everybody left Arkansas, came to Chicago
Right. In Detroit.
and Detroit and Minneapolis. We went
Yes.
straight up to Mississippi. That's what we
Right.
did. Come on.
Absolutely. St. Louis. Right.
There you go. We went straight up. So I'm in East St. Louis in particular. So help me to understand, how do we reach, I would say, not just young people. For example, you got 319,000 Black women who lost their jobs between February and July. I mean, and these civil servant jobs, um, they're being hemorrhaged with this government stoppage. This is really a pretext, and I'm not being partisan, but they could have voted on the 29th and the 30th. But the Republicans shut that down, because the only time you've had government shutdowns have been on their watch. And this is just to squeeze people. My question is, in a time when people need other options, and sometimes we didn't even pursue the things that were really in our hearts, because we were told you need to get that big corporate job. You need to go to law school. You don't need to go to Tuskegee. Who wants to do that? And it's like, wait a minute. It's viable. And that it's not just viable. I mean, this is, what did A.G. Gaston say first? Fill the need. That's what. So are you doing any outreach in the St. Louis area, in the Chicago, in Detroit, in Minneapolis? I mean, to people who just might even have if they don't want to come south, then maybe they want to do urban farming. Maybe they want to look for farms in the area.
So to get to your point, we have a partnership relationship with Bishop Sheard and the Church of God in Christ. In 2022, in September, we spoke to the Board of Bishops, but we talked more about heirs property and proper estate planning. But to get to your point, the answer is yes, somewhat.
Mm-hmm.
We have an urban forestry project with the Church of God in Christ. We are actually planting trees
Okay.
in Detroit, in Chicago, in Memphis, and Arkansas, and Tennessee. Not Tennessee, but
St. Louis, St. Louis.
St. Louis and Clarksdale, Mississippi. And this was a pilot project that was between the Church of God in Christ, the KKAC organization, and the U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Okay.
And it's a 5-year project, Santita. We work with the local government and their planning department, but we also plant trees on private property because what we want to do in the distressed communities, plant the trees to improve the aesthetic beauty of the communities and cool communities down, and also teach the young people there, they get jobs on how to plant and help to maintain the trees. Now, Ricky talked about the training in those 11 states that we talked about. We actually go out and provide technical assistance to those that will attend. Part of the problem, and Ms. Brasfield, who run our heirs property, say I shouldn't say this all the time, but a lot of our problems are our responsibility.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like for estate planning and cleaning up heirs property, sometimes that's an arduous task to get that done, but it's doable and it takes work. So we do reach out. We go to any community where we are invited. Anybody that invite us will come. And let me talk about some of our supporters, our sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
The Walton Family Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, Wildlife Mississippi. All the money that we get to help write wills and trusts come from the other communities. And we're talking to people in our community, but we've managed to save. We've probably written more than 200 wills just in the state of Arkansas in the last 2 years. Now, I don't know how many we've written in other states, but cumulative, I'm sure we've probably written over 1,000 wills and trusts. And every time we save, I got a son that's doing really well, and he talked to his colleagues who happen to be the other community. How can you all buy these speedboats and these big houses, and I make the same amount of money? You know what one of his colleagues said to him? We spend money out of our trust. We don't have to touch our salaries. And what I said to the people that we try to attract money from, in our communities, our children get one shot at life, generally speaking. If they get strung out on drugs, that's usually the end. But in other communities where they got resources that's been passed down from one generation to the next, they got to fall back. Well, we try to tell people the quickest way to lose your wealth is fight with your family.
That the story that I read to you at the top,
Yeah,
it was a family fight.
a family fight.
That I mean, and they parceled off the land, and these brothers didn't even know.
Right. And it's still happening, Santita. It's still happening.
So, I mean, well, I only have about 5 or 6 more minutes here, and I want to give the time to you, Mr. Wilbur Peer and Mr. Ricky Peer. I want to have you back, and since you're talking with Church of God in Christ, and we're all brothers and sisters in Christ, and I think that is wonderful. I was just talking to a friend of mine who is head of social action for the Progressive Baptist. I'm going to connect you to Reverend Dr. Darrell Gray, because I think that in the National Baptist Convention, um, we've got to connect our people to these options. And quite frankly, I'm not. Um, I I would say, I don't want to see any farmer, white, black, yellow, brown, or red, kill themselves. I want to see the family farm saved. Period. One of the first farm aids that happened, that was held, Reverend Jackson actually, he went to speak there. Willie Nelson and Jim Hightower
Right.
from Texas had to
I
go.
remember.
And so, people my father said, "You really want me to go there?" And Jim Hightower said, "Oh, Jesse, you can handle it." Reverend, you got this. After you finish talking, they're going to be on your side, Jesse. Just trust me. And of course, he went out to booze. And then as he was wrapping up, they were shouting, "Run, Jesse, run."
Ron, I remember.
And, so the thing is, we have so much in common. And I just think that it's such an honorable profession. I told you my brother, Congressman Jackson,
Hmm.
years ago, he used to go to farms just outside of Chicago. And he would say, farmers are amazing people. They're so connected to the land.
Right.
And he said they are the most logical people in this world because they understand the changes in the weather. They have to understand that. It wasn't just our great grandmama Tibby's need. But
Right.
she also, when she'd come north, because she spent a lot of time with us growing up, she didn't like the food up north.
Right.
She said the taste is bad, the water's hard. I hate this.
Yeah.
She didn't say I hate it. She said this water is not good. She couldn't stand it,
Hmm.
and she felt that the vegetables were just awful. But we would go with her to the market
Hmm.
every Saturday
They get fresh.
to get, yes,
Yes.
and then we go in the middle of the week to get some more.
Right.
Because of course we spent summers in the South. So I'm going to start with your brother Ricky,
Mhm.
and I'm going to give you 3 minutes, Ricky, and I want everyone to go. Is it to KKAC.org?
That's correct.
Because Bernadette and others want to know where they can go. Because we need to get you on the broadcast at Rainbow Push to talk about this. We need to talk about farming, urban and rural farming. And now that folks know that they could actually turn their backyard into a farm, I think we might see these little plastic tents popping up everywhere. so,
That would
so
be a good thing.
that would be a good. I'm not mad about it.
Yes.
Ricky Peer, what do you want us to know?
Well, let me just say that as a young person growing up, and my father was a farmer, and I
Mhm.
didn't know the importance of farming, but we was raised on the farm. We raised our own milk and butter, and our chicken, and our eggs, and our meat, and that's back in the day. But
Mhm.
what I come to realize, farmers feed America.
Mm.
Farmers is a part of our defense to this nation because we feed other parts of the world.
Mhm.
So what I would tell your listeners is if you own one speck of soil, to hold on to it and start producing your own food and your own vegetables. Okay. And if you don't understand it and you need some help understanding it, just go to kkAC.org and
Mhm.
reach out to us. And we will support you. We will give you that technical assistance that you need uh, to maintain your soil. If you got resources, I would suggest you buy that lot. You can go to the land commission in any state. There's land that's probably in the command land commission that is being retained due to taxes. People
Mm.
fail to pay their taxes, and you can purchase land or lot or some portions of a lot just to repay the taxes to the state. So, two things: try to produce your own, where there's food deserts, try to produce your own food, your own vegetables. If you got resources and you want to invest in some land. So that's what I would tell your listeners.
No, that's a whole lot. I'm going to have you come back to walk us through how to do that because that's a really, really big deal with these food deserts. My pastor said, I've never seen God make a mouth that God couldn't feed.
Yeah.
So we have the resources right here. Just need to use that, which is why my mother makes me save all of the seeds from my apples and my
Mhm.
watermelon. So I save seeds.
Do you
Mhm.
really? Do you really say
I
seeds?
save seeds. No, my
Okay.
mother is very much that way.
Okay.
And my mother has her garden begins in the driveway. My brother swears she's driving down the property values in the neighborhood because it starts
Trust me. No.
almost. And no, because she has all kind of rigs,
Yeah.
but but that's okay. He's having fun with her because now he's growing vegetables in his backyard. You just can't see them; the trees obscure them. But there it is.
Right. But they are there.
Yeah, absolutely. He was having fun with her, but he wanted to know how she did it. But yeah, I do save seeds.
That's a good thing.
Because that's what God gave them to me for. If something is seedless, I don't eat it. How about that?
Yeah. Makes
But
sense, right?
but oh, Wilbur Peer, the last
So,
last couple of minutes belong to you.
so what I would say to your listeners, check with your relatives. See if your relatives in rural areas, no matter what rural area it is, if they own land. Find out if there's a clear title, and if you're part of the heirs, go back and do the research. Save the land. There are approximately 8 billion people on Earth right now. In the year 2050, it's predicted to be 10 billion people, and we got to feed those people with the same amount of land that we own now. And clearing up heirs property issues is vitally important to the wealth of our community. If we had 30 to 40% of all of our community, we would not have to worry about where our money is coming from because we could have our own money.
Mm-hmm.
Maintaining wealth is what we promote at KKAC, maintaining and transferring wealth from one generation to the next. To get to your point about what can a person do that's without a job now, if they own land and they get a high ton of hoop house, do you know 2 or 3 rows of tomatoes? The high tunnels are usually the larger ones, about 30 feet wide and 90 feet long. That will produce more tomatoes than you can sell in most markets. You can make a lot of money by growing your own produce. So I would say to our communities, when you get letters in the mail from the government, read them. As then in the churches say, you have to study to show thyself approved.
Hmm.
Educate yourselves on what resources that's already in existence. We don't have to go find new resources. They're already there. We just have to apply for them. That's what we do. Help introduce people to existing resources. We say that we will win when we work ourselves out of a job because we are an advocacy organization and we advocate for people who don't have the knowledge or the resources to access existing resources. That's what we do. We try to make sure people understand how vitally important. My brother passed in Chicago in 2017 on quite a bit of property, but we did a trust for him a year before he passed, and his estate is closed. And then my son took his own life. His estate is still open because he did not have a will. It is so important for us to understand how important it is for us to have resources in our own community by doing proper estate planning.
Wilbur Peer, Ricky Peer, thank you for you're doing God's work. Really. What else can you do? I've never seen God make a mouth that God could not feed. And that is so true. And we have the resources right here in the urban world and the rural world. We need to understand what to do with it. If you live in a city, you need to know what you should do with those vacant lots in your neighborhood or in your backyard. We need to figure it out. There's no reason that anyone should starve. But I tell you what, we ought to be concerned about our farmers because your beans don't come from a can. Okay. Oh my goodness. And your potatoes do not come from McDonald's. love McDonald's fries, but that's not it. And sadly, many of our children don't know that it is the potato that yields the fries. There's
That,
just there's
that
so much disconnection now,
yeah.
and so let's talk about that. I'm gonna
Santita, can I say
yes, sir.
one last
Yes,
thing?
sir. Yes, sir.
What you travel the world. In America, we got the cheapest and the best quality of food in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
Farmers, it seemed like farmers are getting over fat cats, but the farmers, as long as we got family farmers, we're going to have a good quality of food at an economical price. But
Mm-hmm.
when it all become commercial producers and the stovepipe, they control everything, we're going to see the difference. It's really important for us to save the farmers, whether we like them or not. They are to our advantage to keep them in business and not to be committing suicide.
KKAC.org, everybody. KKAC.org. Ricky Peer, Wilbur Peer, I thank you so much for your service. Cannot wait to have you back because we've got a lot of discussions that we need to have about food here on the Santita Jackson Show. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. God bless you, everybody.
Thank you for having us.
I want to thank you for being